that you'll have to choose from when you build your database. Let's just run through those. The first data entry field is a file field, and this allows you to upload a file of any format, and it will be attached to this particular record or this particular patient. Again, any format goes, so you might have a PDF of somebody's signed consent form that you wanted to attach to this record, or an image of a chest x-ray, maybe an audio file if you were doing a speech pathology database. You've got a limit here of about 30 megabytes, but that is per file, so you can attach as many files as you need. Just remember, when you are using the file field, you are attaching that file to this particular record. So to open the file, you have to first open the record. If you wanted to upload a file that everyone in your study needs access to, but isn't associated with a particular record, that's what the file repository is for. And we'll talk about that in more detail a little bit later. So the file field is the first data entry field that you can use when you're building your database. The second one is a text box. And this is pretty self-explanatory. This is where you can enter any alphanumeric text. These boxes hold pages and pages of free-form data, but only about 30 characters will actually display in the box on the screen here. There is no spell check, but we do offer some validation options for text boxes. So this relates back to that theme of getting good quality data in, so you can do quality data analysis later. If you wanted to make sure someone had entered, for example, a phone number or an email address or a date, you can validate text boxes for that. So let me show you a couple examples. Here, for example, we've got a text box that's validated for date, and I know that because there's a little calendar icon next to it, so I could just click that and choose a date. But let's say I'm manually typing in my data and I'm in a hurry, so I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing, and I enter that as a date, try to continue my data entry. But because this text box is validated for a date, I'm going to get this pop-up reminding me that's outside the criteria for what you should be entering here. And this is a hard validation, and it won't let me continue until I either delete or correct what I've entered. So if I do go back and correct what I've entered, I'll put in something it can recognize as a date, and when I click away, it will now change it to the international date format for me. So that's an example of date validation. Now let me show you one more example. Here, this text box is validated in a couple ways. First of all, it's validated for a number, so I do have to enter a number. It's also validated for a range, so you can set up a minimum or a maximum or both, and you can even do that with dates. So if you had, for example, a pediatric population and wanted to make sure everyone was born before or after a certain date, you can do that. Here I know that 88 is outside the range for this text box, so I'll enter that and try to continue doing data entry. I'll still get that pop-up reminding me that this is outside the criteria I should be entering, but it does accept the data point. It will let me continue and do more data entry. It does make this data point bold, and it does underline that box in red, but this is a soft validation. It will actually save the data. So those are just a couple examples of the validation options for text boxes. The third data entry field that you can use is a notes box, very similar to a text box, just gives you a little bit more real estate on the screen. But again, you can enter pages and pages of free-form data here. Text boxes and notes boxes are really tempting to use, especially for me, because they capture a lot of information really quickly. But if you're interested in any kind of statistic analysis, statisticians would probably prefer that you use some multiple choice questions instead. It's a lot easier to quantify that kind of data. So in REDCap, you've got a couple different options for multiple choice questions. First, you have a drop-down box, and second, you have a radio button. So these are allowing you to make a selection from a list of choices. If you've got just a few choices, you might want to use a radio button. If you've got several different choices, you might want to hide them behind a drop-down box just to save some room on the screen. So those are the fourth and fifth data entry fields. The sixth and final one looks a lot like a text box, but you'll notice that I can't actually type in anything here, and the box is kind of grayed out. This is a calculated field. Pretty much anything you can calculate in Microsoft Excel, you can calculate in a REDCap database. So here, for example, we're calculating age based on date of birth. So if I enter that, I get the age calculation automatically. If I enter a height and weight, oops, and click away, I've got the BMI calculation pop in automatically. This is